Network.
The IRS has a reminder that the tax deadline for some small businesses affected by severe weather in 2024 is drawing near.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg.
Small businesses in all or parts of 14 states and 2 territories have received extensions to file their 2023 returns due to natural disasters will need to file in 2025. Depending on their location, some have a February 3rd deadline. For others, it's May the 1st. A new study suggests new cases of dementia in the United States are projected to double in the next 3 decades. The study, published this week in the journal Nature Medicine, looked at more than 15,000 people and estimated the lifetime risk of dementia from ages 55 to 95. The team projected new U.S. dementia cases would double from more than 500,000 in 2020 to approximately 1 million by 2060. The authors said this increase is directly tied to the aging of the U.S. population.
I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
That spice is 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Hi, my name is Khadijah, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick of the chicken. It's just the right amount of heat, and it gets me excited. And then, pro tip, add that cilantro lime sauce. It cools it down. If the sandwich is at 100, the cilantro lime takes it to 200. It makes me want to, tell all my friends and family.
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
You've heard of smart bombs, smartphones, smart cars, smart watches, and smart glasses. Now you can add smart player, giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Oh, the best hour of your day now officially is underway after a little technical difficulties on my end for some reason. Computer didn't want to work correctly, but that's why we have 2 setups here on set where we flip it over to the other one and then we go live and have some fun. So yes, we're here. It's Sonny Right Side. I'm going to be with you for the next, 45 minutes. My goal today is to get you ready for this weekend's NFC divisional rounds. Yes, the divisional rounds, key games across the board. And my goal here, maybe settle in on a couple wagers that I've already been thinking about playing so far. If we're looking on Saturday, 4:30 kickoff, Houston and Kansas City, followed by Washington and Detroit as the night game at 8 o'clock. So now we look at the Sunday action, the Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles, followed by the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. For my money, if I'm looking, saying, ooh, man, some heavy numbers out here in these streets because you're looking at 8.5 as a favorite for the Kansas City Chiefs. You're looking at 9.5 as a favorite for Detroit. And then you're looking at Sunday action, the Eagles favored by roughly a touchdown, depending where you're shopping at. And then the true coin flip of the week, and that's the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. So let's get into it here. And where do we start? Why don't we just go with the first game of this weekend to get that preview? Most people would look at that line between Houston and Kansas City and say, that is way too much. Can't deal with it. We're not laying that price. We're not going to take that money at -1, -8.5, and go with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's got to be. It's got to be the Houston Texans. And right now, I'm going to tell you, I can't argue with you. Sometimes you got to be out of your mind to take the Kansas City Chiefs and feel as though they're going to actually do their job and win by double digits and get you the cover. But we know Andy Reid, and we know the Kansas City Chiefs. When they come off a bye, nothing better in the sport. I believe Ben read it back to me. I want to say 30-3. We're 33-3, something like that, coming off of a bye straight up to win the football game. The question is to us is, we probably think they're winning it, right? Just the question is, how much are they going to win by? You know me, I'm not particularly a sides guy. Don't have a great feel for that one, but the over-under listed at 41.5. Now, granted, once again, it is Wednesday. Things are going to change on Thursday. Things are going to change on Friday, and then Saturday right up till kickoff. But if we are looking and saying to ourselves, how are the weather conditions? How will they impact a dome team like Houston now playing outdoors? Kansas City, as we've seen in the past, even as early as last year, playing in sub-freezing conditions out there at Arrowhead. Will be cold again this weekend. It is an afternoon game, doesn't matter. At kickoff, 23 degrees. While you're playing in the fourth quarter, 20 degrees. Precipitation in the forecast, absolutely none. Wind speed, over 10 miles an hour. Could play a little bit of a factor there. So if we're looking at clean conditions, cold conditions, who's that going to favor? Now, usually you would say it would be the home team, the Kansas City Chiefs. They're used to playing in those cold conditions, and technically I would agree with a dome team in Houston. Houston really is built as if they're going to be playing outdoor football as opposed to indoor. Running game with Joe Mixon. Good quarterback in the pocket. Strong number one that can go up and catch footballs here. Quarterback with a strong arm and a defense that is really good under DeMeco Ryans. Kansas City, what are their factors in there? Well, they have Patrick Mahomes, the best player in the sport. Well, they have Andy Reid, the best coach in the sport. And maybe the best defensive coordinator in the sport in Steve Spagnuolo. Those are bonuses. They're on a bye week. They're at home. They're supposed to win. Last week, Houston had to play a football game before getting to Kansas City. Kansas City was rested and ready at home last week, waiting on their team, who they found out who that would be last weekend, and now fighting to beat the Texans to move on to the AFC Championship game. So there are advantages. But if you're saying to yourself, which way would you be leaning? Because I'm going to pull up a couple different outlets here. First, starting with FanDuel, on a way to maybe enter in this game with a prop perspective and feel how these two teams will battle themselves. So if you're looking from a Houston Texans side, the massive underdog, you would immediately lean to see how C.J. Stroud is going to do. So if we're bringing up the props for C.J. Stroud and just looking at the overall passing props, and again, just using FanDuel just to keep it as simple as possible to get through as much information as we can. C.J. Stroud's passing yards in this game, 230 and a half. Patrick Mahomes at 248 and a half. The touchdown props for the quarterbacks to throw. Over 1.5 is listed, minus 144 for Patrick Mahomes, and C.J. Stroud over 1.5 at a juicy plus 205. So if we're looking at quarterback matchups head-to-head, who are you trusting more with the way to get there? Because there's two ways to think about it. If we're looking at that line over 7 and a total in the low 40s, immediately you're saying to yourself, well, Kansas City's supposed to win. The more opportunities for throwing the football for Houston late in the game because they'll be down, understandably. You also have to think that Houston is going to be aggressive in this game. Just leaning off and saying to myself, which way would I possibly go? Mahomes 248, probably lean towards the under, to be honest on that. CJ Stroud's 230, not in love with that. The touchdown passes, you always know I'm a fan of going over 1.5 on legitimate quarterbacks. Maybe you look Patrick Mahomes in that fashion. It's a little bit expensive, minus 144, but not too bad. I don't really know if I like CJ Stroud all that much because the one thing I do know is the Kansas City Chiefs sometimes don't get the credit they deserve on defense under Spagnuolo. They are spectacular. It's going to be cold. They're going to be revved up and ready to go. Oh, they lost 38-0 in their final game. No starters played. Remove that from the equation. This is an elite defense with an elite defensive coordinator, and they should be able to hold it down. Receiving props in this game overall. Travis Kelce leading the way here for Kansas City, 52.5 yards. Rested, ready, a little bit older in his career. You saw how good he's been the past two previous playoff runs. I'm expecting, I can't say the same, but I'm expecting a good run and a healthy run out of Travis Kelce. You look at Nico Collins, 82.5 is his number. He's going to be expected to get that target share for the Houston Texans, undoubtedly. But now you start to fight and say, who are getting the crumbs out here, right? And sometimes it's not fair to list it that way. Xavier Worthy has clearly turned into the number one wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's listed at 51.5 for this game Saturday. DeAndre Hopkins, who was 27.5 on Monday, that is now sitting at 29.5. So a very doable option. And by the way, I'll bring up some other statistics once we get to the break and get some things sorted out. But just about every game, DeAndre Hopkins gets at least 30 yards receiving. We'll see how that one plays. Marquise Brown coming on late in the season, who was an impactful addition to start the season for the Chiefs. They got injured before game one. We'll find out where that guy's going because he's listed at 40.5. A lot more football talk here. It's a Wednesday. It's hump day. But let's get prepared for this weekend's action in Super Wildcard Weekend, onto the divisional round this weekend, onto the AFC NFC Championship. I'm Donnie Rightside. We got a long way to go, boys. Join me right back here after the break.
We never stop giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24 hours a day,
7 days a week.
Business hours are for losers. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1967 Super Bowl I, known as the AFL-NFL Championship, between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs in LA's Memorial Coliseum. The game was broadcast on two networks, CBS and NBC, as the 14-point favorite Packers crushed the Chiefs 35-10. Packers quarterback Bart Starr was named the game's MVP.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
University College of London scientists have created the world's thinnest spaghetti. And by thin, this electro-spun nanofiber pasta makes your grandfather's angel hair look like a redwood tree trunk. At 372 nanometers, that's 14,000 billionths of an inch thick. It can only be seen with an electron microscope. Made of safe edible starch for medical drug delivery and porous bandages that let moisture in and keep bacteria out. Cooks up for dinner in just a second. However, only one problem.
I can't see it.
Follow me at Capalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
Listen, this guy, Morency, I love him. I've known him for 30 years. He's giving me the business about the Steelers don't matter and all this other. I'm like, they went to 8 Super Bowls. They won 6 Super Bowls. He said, that doesn't matter. And I'm like, oh, like the Bills of 0-4 in the Super Bowl? They can't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, but that doesn't matter either. The Steelers' standard is Super Bowls.
It's Pharrell, Coast to Coast with Scott Farrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge, the SportsGrid Radio Network. There, Sporto. We know you've been hurt in the past. Big stations with big promises lied to you, suckered you in. We don't do that.
We're the real deal.
You can take our information to the bank. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
All right, right back at it here. It's SportsGrid Network, baby. Sirius XM Channel 159. Lovely Wednesday. Cold here in the Northeast. Hopefully getting better weather conditions there than I am, as it's been freezing for just about the past 2 weeks. Working on a little bit different of a setup right now for radio/TV. And that's okay. We make it through. We make do here. Hopefully I can get my normal setup running tomorrow, but that's neither here nor there. We got to get to some of these options here, particularly the prop markets that we're dealing with between the Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. I told you on DeAndre Hopkins. They played Christmas Day, I should say. Forget about December 25th. 2 receptions, 7 yards for a long of 4 against the Steelers. Not good enough. Now, as we take a look at that 27.5, which is now turned to a 29.5 as a receiving prop for DeAndre Hopkins, here's the reason why. Previous games before that, 37 yards, 36 yards, 32 yards, 90 yards, 35 yards, 29 yards, 56, 86, 29. You get the point here. He's right on that number. Is he the number one wide receiver here for the Kansas City Chiefs? Not by a wide margin anymore. He's really not. So to yourself, you got to make this decision. Is he going to be effective? Are they going to go to him? I think he can get over 30 yards. Have I bet it yet? No, I have not. Am I looking towards maybe a John Mechie III on Houston as a secondary option? Maybe so. They cut Deontay Johnson, gone out the door, 4 teams in a calendar year. Hutchinson is still going to be on that side. By the way, does he even have numbers for this game? Yeah, 10.5. So the secondary options for the Texans, Nico Collins, 82.5 as the lead dog. Dalton Schultz, tight end, 36.5. We just said Mechie at 34.5. By the way, had 8 targets in the last game in the first half, had none in the second half. Sort of an anomaly there. Joe Mixon out of the backfield, if you feel they'll be losing and they got to make some plays, could he be able to go over that number? And then a ton of guys on the Kansas City side, right? Number 1 wide receiver / player on their team, Travis Kelce. We talked about Xavier Worthy, Hopkins as well, Brown at 40.5. And then you go way down the list, right? Isaiah Pacheco's out of the backfield, 5.5. Noah Gray at 12.5. Not as enticing for this game. Rushing props on this one for the weekend. Isaiah Pacheco, 41.5 yards. Kareem Hunt, 31.5 yards. Patrick Mahomes, as we always like to call him, a big game runner. He is listed at 23.5 yards. C.J. Stroud, quarterback here for the Texans, at 14.5, and Mixon at 57.5. Of the games on the weekend, to be honest, and this is why they always put the Texans in game number 1, my least favorite game. Will I watch? Will I have some action on it? Probably so at the end of the week. But I'm starting to line up what I want out of this weekend here. Probably not going to be Houston and or Kansas City. We'll see how it plays out. All right. Second game. Intriguing as all get out. Saturday Night Football. It's Washington and it's Detroit. 8 o'clock kickoff. Line opened up at 8.5. Is now sitting at 9.5 at just about every outlet. FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Bet365, Vegas. You get the point. 55.5 is a total. That hasn't moved either. That is an astronomical number for a playoff game. We can all understand that. But talking on the early line this morning, both myself and Ben trying to analyze this game to get a little bit of a pick-me-up. The reason why it's so high, too, is both of these teams ultra-aggressive on fourth down. Both of these teams ultra-aggressive at converting fourth downs. That holds weight because usually when you have a line this high, field goals are an absolute win, right? Hey, man, they drove down the field. They took 5 minutes off the clock. They kicked the field goal. We're in the mid-50s. We're golden at this point, and I understand that. But now you're taking a look at these two teams here playing on 4th and 2 in the red zone. They're not doing any of that. They're not kicking field goals. They're absolutely going for it. No question about it. So that's going to be trading 3s for 7s, which is a 4-point difference. Now, if you can get those 5-minute drives and a 4th and goal to 1 that they don't get it, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. But these are two elite teams at converting fourth downs, one with a quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who's fantastic on his feet, 3rd and 3, 4th and 3, can get it with his legs. You know he's going to run it. It doesn't matter. He still comes through, right? And then you take a look at Detroit, who now has their dual-headed monster in the backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery back to being healthy this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wonderful tight end, wonderful offensive line, Jamison Williams. You get the point here, right? But that 55.5, I do have to say, I lean towards the under. But the focal point for me starts to change on how can we anticipate this game and what do we think out of a rookie quarterback who got his first playoff victory and a road victory in Jaden Daniels, how he's going to factor into this game. Because we'll get into it more after the break. This might be my focal point player for this weekend's divisional round matchups. It's Jaden Daniels. Let's go over some of the finer points on where we can possibly make some money. So make sure you keep the dial right here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM channel 159. I'm Donnie Rightside, and we will be right back.
You're listening to your source of sports gaming strategies and information.
We call it the winning edge.
It helps make the odds even. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. NFL divisional round action this weekend. On Saturday, the Texans visit the Chiefs. Kansas City 8-0 at home in search of their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl title. Then the Lions play host to the Commanders Saturday night. On Sunday, it'll be the Rams visiting the Eagles. LA with a big win over the Vikings on Monday in Arizona after the game was moved because of the LA wildfires. Head coach Sean McVay.
You know, with everything that's gone on with our community, everything that these guys have gone through, I thought they epitomized and they represented the city the right way.
Later on Sunday, the Bills put their 8-0 home mark on the line against the Ravens. The College Football National Championship game is this coming Monday night in Atlanta with Notre Dame battling Ohio State. Notre Dame's Anthony Knapp is out. He's got an ankle injury. Rocco Spindler is expected to play. Ohio State's Denzel Burke is banged up, but head coach Ryan Day said that he should be available. Bondo Auto and Home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Progressive presents Renters MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Emily Neal's 70-inch TV. Because after watching her second-grade students yell at each other for hours, there's nothing Emily enjoys more than watching super-rich housewives also yell at each other. Why? Because those women are not her responsibility. And that's why her TV is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
I feel like I'm constantly cleaning hair off my bathroom floor. At least my Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths have ultra-thick pads to trap and lock hairs, like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair's gone, all thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough, sticky messes.
Be the master of your domain. Get the SportsGrid mobile app so now you can get the winning edge while your wife is in a dressing room trying on stuff while you wait patiently on the uncomfortable chair. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
All right back at it here. Talking about that game, which is going to be so interesting between Detroit and the Washington Commanders. As we said, opening line 8.5, ballooned to 9.5, close to 10. Does it get to 10? I don't think it does, right? Similar to that Steelers game. Maybe popped its head at 10 during the week, but then late in the week sort of backed out of that, right? That's the way it feels for me. Total in this game, as we said, sky high at 55.5. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. And by the way, as we are working on a few different things behind the scenes, we're going to bring that heat right now. Jaden Daniels could be my focal point of this weekend. Rookie quarterback for the Washington Commanders, sensational all the way through this year, and rightfully so will be the Rookie of the Year, and deservedly so. But if we are looking at this game where I do think Detroit is going to win, I think Detroit's defense, technically with that rest, will be better than the Washington defense. The one thing we know, it's very rare that you go into a game where you say the Detroit Lions don't have a better offense than their opposing team. I still think that's the same thing this weekend. But how many points are we going to get? That'll tell the tale. Let's understand about Jaden Daniels. If we go back to the Cowboys game on November the 24th, threw for 275 yards and 2 touchdown passes. The game after that against the Titans, 206, but 3 touchdown passes. Then the Saints, 226 and 2 touchdown passes. Versus the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was lights out in the second half, 5 touchdown passes in that game with 258 yards. The Falcons in the game that basically put them into the playoffs, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception that game, 227. Played the Cowboys, but only played about a quarter and a half. Sacked a couple times, pulled him out, threw for 38 yards, no touchdowns. So you sort of remove that from the equation. Then you saw him go back on with the Buccaneers in the playoffs, 268 and 2 touchdowns. So if we remove the Cowboys game and go back to the original Cowboys game, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games, if we include the playoff game, with at least 2 touchdowns passing here. And also thinking about stuff like, let me just go to Bet365, because I know they'll probably have this up as well. Hopefully it doesn't ask me to log in, and it does. So we'll get the code while we're on the air. Never cease to realize. And by the way, there's a little PSA for the books out there. Just leave me logged in all the time. Like if somebody steals and runs down to my desk or office and bets for me, so be it. That's my fault. I can't stand logging in repeatedly on these sites. So as I get my login code to try to help the good people out here, let's see what we got here. Bop, bop, bop. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Is that enough? Is that going to get me in? No, it doesn't match because we're typing quickly here as we're on the air. So let's try it again. Okay. I don't even think this is going to work either. Oh, there we go. It actually worked. Congratulations. Live action. Exactly the way we wanted it. All right. Because what I want to look here is, as I told you, 2 teams specifically, the Washington Commanders, that are playing for touchdowns and not field goals. So if you're a field goal prop guy, over 6.5 points, over 7.5 points for the kicker, I don't know how many field goals we're getting in this game because understand that they are both ultra aggressive. But there are team props that you can bet on Bet365 with obviously how many points that you're going to score. And by the way, the Detroit Lions, 34.5 at a plus 115 price to go over on Bet365. Yeah, 34.5 in a playoff game. Crazy town. But I want to go down to the team touchdowns. And the reason I want to do that is if we're eschewing field goals and possibly being down in the second half, as we believe, you must score touchdowns to stay involved. If you look at the Lions in this game, to score 4 touchdowns is a minus 170 price. 4 touchdowns. That means 28 points there. It's minus 170. Maybe they'll tack on some field goals, but you're really betting with that total at 34.5 that they're going to score 5 touchdowns. And if you're betting over 4.5, that's a plus 162 price. 5 touchdowns for them. We'll flip it over to the Washington Commanders and try to get inside of some of those numbers. So I do like their offense, but as I said again, it's not banked on we think they're going to hit their team total or get close to 30 points. It's what they're going to be doing. In the red zone, unless you are 4th and 10, they're going to be going for it, which means they absolutely want to score touchdowns. Looking at their price points, to get over 2.5 touchdowns, which means 21 points, that's plus 115. I don't mind that. I actually don't mind that at all. Because I don't think they're not driving down the field on a 4th and 2 to start this game and say, let's get the points on the road here. They didn't do it in Tampa. Nope. And they're not going to do that here. So that's an interesting concept. But if we're starting early in this Washington game for me, it's got to be Jaden Daniels. It really does. So let me go back and take a look at most outlets here, what the best price point for that would be. DraftKings at plus 105, FanDuel at plus 116, Bet365 at plus 100. That might be one of the first bets we make. And maybe, I don't know if we're going to make it right now on the air, but maybe a little bit later today. But Jaden Daniels certainly is going to be the focal point for me from a quarterback perspective in that game. Now, if we are lining it up, just head back to the FanDuel Sportsbook just to check to see the vibe of what we're getting on some of these other, action shots here with the quarterback. Let's see. Let's bring them up. Passing yardage, 271.5 for Jared Goff. Jaden Daniels, 234.5. Like, if they're going to be in that, doesn't it feel like he has to throw for over 234.5? And if we are looking at his past couple games, you're going to be in that boat. Buccaneers, 268. Falcons, 227. Eagles, 258. Saints, 226. Right in that ballpark there. As we said, the touchdown passes. Jared Goff's at 271. Jared Goff is not even listed at over 1.5 touchdown passes. He's listed at 2.5. Now, it is a nice, juicy price at plus 148, but he's got to throw 3 of those bad boys. He might. But I'm telling you right now, those 2 running backs are going to have a say and take some of those away. Maybe get a dump-off pass for a touchdown to help him out there. Receiving props in the game, just listed through the FanDuel Sportsbook. Terry McLaurin, top dog for the Commanders, 68.5. Zach Ertz, 29.5. Other guys on the Commanders, De'Ami Brown, 31.5. Olatomi Zaccheaus, who's been feeling like a number 1 wideout the past couple weeks. He's listed at 32.5. Brian Robinson out of the backfield, 8.5. Austin Eckler, 23.5. But now we focus on the Detroit side of things. Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're going to want to go to him. Marshawn Lynch is back, but he got beat up a little bit by Mike Evans. And the previous game that he played before he got injured in against the Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown beat him up too. A lot of penalties, a lot of holding calls on him, a lot of pass interferences there. Jamison Williams, 56.5. Sam Laporta, tight end, 48.5. Boy, you are getting no discounts. When your number 1 is in the 70s, and your number 2 is in the 50s, and number 3 is in the 40s, you might have to spread this bad boy out. And particularly looking at Jahmyr Gibbs at 23.5 out of the backfield, and David Montgomery at 15.5. Rushing props in this game, what would be your focal point here? If you were just looking at a rushing prop, understanding that David Montgomery is coming back and they're saying he's healthy, we'll watch those practice reports as they filter through to the week. But Jahmyr Gibbs is listed at 80.5 rushing yards, which to me would be an absolute steal if we knew Montgomery wasn't coming back. So let me just see if we can bring up Gibbs' past couple games here, where he has been the bell cow, and rightfully so. The Bears game, 23 carries, 109, and a touchdown on the ground. The 49ers game, 18 for 117 and a touchdown on the ground as he hit that on the final carry he had of that game. The Vikings game, 23 carries for $139, 3 touchdowns. He was a menace. He was a maniac. Wouldn't we feel that would continue? But the thing we know about Dan Campbell and that offense, along with Ben Johnson, where they love themselves some David Montgomery. Wouldn't be surprised if David Montgomery actually started in that game, to be honest. And how many carries is going to take away? How many carries do you want to give David Montgomery? Because he's healthy. He's as tough as it comes. He'll want that football. He'll want to tote the rock. So for me right now, more of a look-see on the back end for the Detroit Lions. Austin Eckler, back off of his concussion, fresh and healthy, looked decent last week. He's listed at 21.5, but I wouldn't be going to him in the running game. And also a little bit leery of the running game outside the quarterback for Washington. Why? Because if that's a 10-point number, they're not cranking up that running game in the second half. So you have basically a half to get some of those numbers, which is why Brian Robinson, their lead dog, he's only listed at 36.5 yards. Whereas their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, 54.5. Daniels is going to run. It's turf. He's going to be quick. But how much of the past couple weeks of running so much, taking such a beating, is he going to be able to hold up with? That's the question we have. Love this game. Love Jaden Daniels. See if he can come through. And when we make those bets, we'll let you know. Johnny Wright sat right on the grid. I'll be back.
Loser is kind of a mean-spirited slur, but it doesn't have to stick. Tell them to listen to SportsGrid and fix it.
No, thank you.
Later. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The College Football National Championship game is this coming Monday night in Atlanta with Notre Dame battling Ohio State. Notre Dame's Anthony Knapp is out. He's got an ankle injury. Rocco Spindler is expected to play. Ohio State's Denzel Burke is banged up, but head coach Ryan Day said that he should be available. NFL divisional round action this weekend. On Saturday, the Texans visit the Chiefs. Kansas City 8-0 at home in search of their third consecutive Super Bowl title. Then the Lions play host to the Commanders Saturday night. On Sunday, it'll be the Rams visiting the Eagles. LA with a big win over the Vikings on Monday in Arizona after the game was moved because of the LA wildfires. Head coach Sean McVay.
You know, with everything that's gone on with our community, everything that these guys have gone through, I thought they epitomized and they represented the city the right way.
Later on Sunday, the Bills put their 8-0 home mark on the line against the Ravens. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I juggle a lot. And managing constipation with belly pain from my irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, with laxatives and fiber isn't enough. My doctor recommended a way to get ahead of it. Then I said yes to Linzess.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LANZESS.
If SportsGrid was a burrito, we'd be the one with steak and carnitas packed so full every bite made your cheeks poof out like Dizzy Gillespie, so the name stuck and now even your mother calls you Dizzy. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Like if we were asking a simple question, right? Texans, Chiefs, Commanders, Lions, 9.5-point favorite here for the Lions, 8.5 for the Chiefs. Which team would you say out there would have a better chance to cover in those? Would it be the Texans or the Commanders? I think the Commanders have been game all season, but it's one of those where are you finally stepping up at a point where maybe you can't match? Maybe you just get overwhelmed, and that could be the possibility for the Commanders. But the one thing, as I said, I am leaning really towards Jaden Daniels and his over 1.5 touchdown prop, because I think he's going to have to be throwing the entire game. And if you do get in the second half and you're down 14 points, it's not so much about unless he's running it in. You're not handing the football for the 4-yard line looking to run it in. You're throwing it. You got capable options. Zach Ertz has been very good as a veteran tight end for Daniels. You know, you're taking a look at Terry McLaurin, a rebirth this year in that system with Jaden Daniels and the new offensive coordinator outside of Eric Bieniemy. So, you know what I mean? It's just working right now. And I think that could be a possibility. Do I want to take the 55.5 over or under right now? Not necessarily, but I am leaning towards the under. There's no question about that. But I do like an over 1.5 touchdown pass chance at plus money for Jaden Daniels. That's where we're leaning right now. But let's continue to move on and have fun, because I am excited for Saturday's games, as most people are. It's NFL football. We'll all be watching. But Sunday's games could be absolutely fantastic. We'll get to the second, which is the Ravens and the Bills. But first, we'll take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford on the road in a home game last week. Very good Rams team, and also having an effect of, look what the Rams are doing, by the way, over the past couple weeks with their defense. This is one of those teams that you might have factored in midway through the season. Rams are fun. Got some good wideouts. Got a veteran quarterback. Good wide receivers, which we used to think Cooper Kupp was a good wide receiver, but certainly not anymore at this point. My man doesn't even get targets right now. But that defense has come on. Look at the games outside of the Seahawks game, where most of the starters were benched. And let's date this back to the Buffalo Bills game. 44-42, absolute shootout. Oh, my goodness. Bills win that game. Incredible. Stafford throwing it around. Josh Allen throwing it around. But boy, the defense is how they're going to stack up when they really need to. Not the case in that one. But after that, 12-6 victory over the 49ers. They go up 6 points. Now, understand how badly beaten up that Niners offense was, and it wasn't great weather conditions with rain. It's still only 6 points. Then you factor in the Jets. Cold weather conditions at MetLife, 19-9. They played extremely well. Cardinals game, they won 13-9, the final score. Remove the Seahawks game, which they gave up 25 because the starters weren't out there. They head into the playoffs, and look what they did, 27-9. You're looking at a defense that is playing right now absolutely incredible football. How does that stack up against the Eagles? Well, the Eagles are bringing to town the number one ranked defense in football. So usually you say it's hard to bet unders in Eagles games because how potent they can be and the talent they have. Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, you get the picture. And how much talent that technically the Rams have as well. Kyron Williams is a wonderful running back. Matthew Stafford is a Super Bowl winning quarterback with an electric arm. Puka Nacua, the best young wide receiver in football. And some other guys along with Tyler Higbee, who's expected to play this weekend after leaving the previous game with a chest injury, a capable tight end to have. You say, boy, look at that number. Opened up at 45.5, now down as low at DraftKings at 43.5. Most outlets right now showing 44s and 44.5s. But if we look at the weather conditions in Philadelphia to start the game, right around 35 degrees and dropping as the game goes along. Precipitation is in the forecast of close to 30%. And that precipitation could come in the form of snow. Windy conditions, not necessarily. Under 10 miles an hour expected for the entire game. Of course, you know, gusts can happen. So we're looking for a decent slate depending on if it's snow showers, snowy conditions, or maybe some rainy conditions. So a couple days left in the forecast. As we said, it's only Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You'll be able to tell the tale there. But how does this game play out? Because I do think the Eagles obviously are the better football team. Secondarily to that, you also saw the Philadelphia Eagles, final 2 games of the season, they were at home. Playoff game, they were at home. Sleeping in their own beds for over a month, same practice facility, same game routines. They're going to be used to it. You look at the Rams, who were home to end the season, and you would have loved them to be home in the playoff game, but they weren't. The wildfires in Los Angeles pushed the team and also its families into Arizona for a neutral site playoff game, hundreds of miles away, where you got on a plane and you had to get there. Then you fly back. Then you practice to get resituated at home, where maybe some of these players and certainly personnel have lost their home. It's a big-time tragedy, but as we say in the business, the show still must go on. Then you get on a plane and play Philadelphia, cross-country, when you, talking about the Rams, had to play on Monday Night Football while the Eagles played on Sunday. So yes, you are really behind the 8 ball if you are the Rams. So if we are taking a look at some of the action on the numbers there, I do lean towards the under. Let's call it 44.5. 2 good defenses. Jalen Hurts was a little bit rusty last week. They're going to lean on the running game, and 2 defenses in elite form right now as the way they're playing. If we are looking at some of the props in this game from a passing perspective, Jalen Hurts, 204.5. Matthew Stafford, 225.5. See how low those numbers are? These are really good defenses here. Passing touchdown numbers. We don't see this too much. Jalen Hurts over 1.5, which he actually did hit last week, is a plus 144 number. Matthew Stafford, a couple touchdown passes last week, over 1.5. He's at a plus 148. He's got more juice to throw 2 touchdowns than actually Jalen Hurts, which sounds kind of crazy. The receiving props in this game. Dallas Goedert at tight end, 37.5. Had the key play last week with that touchdown. Flipped it off the line, bowled over defensive backs, stiff-armed away, and scored the touchdown that basically kept them, pun intended, arm's length away from the Green Bay Packers. Devonta Smith, 54.5. I did have him last week over 20.5 as his longest catch. Got that last week with, I believe, a 26 or a 28-yard catch. A.J. Brown, invisible last week through his own doing, through the team's doing, reading books on the sideline. He's priced at 69.5 in this game. Saquon Barkley out of the backfield, 12.5. Flipping it over to the Rams. Kyron Williams, 12.5. Puka Nacua, 87.5. DeMarcus Robinson, 19.5. And they continually pricing Cooper Kupp lower and lower, but still listed in the 40s. My guy doesn't even get looks here. Now, do I like to bet unders per se? No, I don't. But Cooper Kupp, I don't think I'm using him in any action to go over anything in this game. By the way, Cooper Kupp lined up against Cooper DeJean. Woohoo! That's the Super Bowl somewhere right there, isn't it, baby? More player props next, and we'll close it out with Baltimore and the Buffalo Bills next, right here on Moneyline. We'll be right back.
It's a choice. Roll the dice
or listen to us.
Luck is finding a good parking spot. Strategy is getting the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The new SportsGrid app is now available on iOS and the App Store. Experience the ultimate sports betting companion that provides personalized content from your favorite hosts. In-depth matchup previews, game and prop picks, live odds, stats, scores, and more. All in one place. And of course, on the SportsGrid app, you can tune into our live television and radio coverage anytime. On the go, wherever you are. Download the SportsGrid app on the iOS App Store now. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Football full circle.
There's going to be some team out there that still thinks Sam Darnold's the greatest thing in the world, but he's got to, I think, get like a Danny Nichols contract, as I like to call him. 4-year deal, maybe 2 years guaranteed, where maybe he would have gotten a 3-year guarantee. I think that's down to maybe 1.5 to 2 after what we've seen these last 2 weeks.
It's Football Full Circle with Ben Stevens and Scott Wetzel. Weekdays, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network.
SportsGrid Radio presents Gridiron Greats.
Here we come. It's a man's game now.
Ray Lewis is considered the greatest middle linebacker in the modern era. Lewis led the Ravens to 2 Super Bowl victories in 2000 and 2012. The 2000 Ravens defense is considered one of the best of all time.
Dwayne Stark's going to take it to the end zone for the touchdown.
Giving up a league-low 165 points and yielded only 23 points in the postseason. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1967 Super Bowl I, known as the AFL-NFL Championship, between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs in LA's Memorial Coliseum. The game was broadcast on 2 networks, CBS and NBC, as the 14-point favorite Packers crushed the Chiefs 35-10. Packers quarterback Bart Starr was named the game's MVP.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
You're listening to the voice of authority. Sports gaming strategies and information on daily sporting events. In other words, information you can take to the bank. We are your trusted source for gaming, odds, and more. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Right back at it here. Ooh, man, where's the time go? Having fun. And look, we've got games that are days away. But we still got to prep for them. We still have to get ready for them. Rushing yards in the Philadelphia Eagles game versus the Los Angeles Rams. Jalen Hurts over 39.5. I actually really like that a lot. Another week, another chance to get healthy. You know he's going to run the football because he's going to be centered on Saquon Barkley. That's not a bad look. And looking at Jalen Hurts, just bring up some of his rushing numbers here over the past few weeks. Now, granted, he's been injured. He's been dinged up. Head a little bit creaky. Threw for 131 passing yards last week, which some might say not good enough. 2 touchdowns, didn't turn the football over. They won that football game. His rushing statistics from last week, 6 carries for 36 yards. So be just short of the 39.5. The game before that against Washington, we only played less than a first quarter, 3 for 41. Before that, 15 carries against the Steelers for 45 yards. Carolina, 8 for 59. Baltimore at 9 for 29. The opportunities will be there. How about Saquon Barkley? 111.5 yards. That's crazy. Probably going to get it. You know me last week. I shut it out to the people. Over 19.5 early week action. Bet that got 25 carries. Didn't matter if you had 20.5, 21.5, 22.5. He was nailing them all. Kyron Williams, 74.5 is a number. Kenneth Gainwell's an interesting one here. And let me just take a look if I could see Kenny G's stats from last week just to bring those up. Because the reason is, if he's still going to get snaps. We understand that. Against the Giants, you take that out. He had 11 carries. Why? Because they didn't play Saquon Barkley in that game. But even last week, we had 25 carries out of Saquon Barkley. He still got 3 for 14 yards. He's listed at 9.5. He's the guy on 3rd and 12 that comes in where they just want to get yardage and hand him the football, and he picks up a couple chunks there. I don't mind Kenneth Gainwell. Puka Nacua listed at 2.5 again, same way he was last week. Because you're saying to yourself, you're just asking for one rush, and he should be able to get that. Those are some fun bets to make. Well, let's get to the final. The coup de grace of the weekend. Baltimore and Buffalo. Opening number for the Buffalo Bills to start the week. They were favored, -1.5. Right now, the Baltimore Ravens have now switched to the favorites at -1.5 points. A total of 52.5, which is now dropped to 51.5. You look at some main components of this game outside of the X's and O's. How about if I told you 13 degrees to start this game? By the end of it, dipping close to 10 and below. Precipitation in the forecast, it's not there in Buffalo, unless we're getting lake effect snow somehow out of nowhere. Windy conditions, nope, under 10 miles per hour. So just crisp, clean, frigid conditions. Which way would that lead you towards tonight? Nobody really has an advantage in that, right? I do think the Baltimore Ravens win that game. I do. Love the Buffalo Bills. Got Josh Allen hanging on my wall over there as I look to the left. But I think the Buffalo Bills here are going to be in for a little rude awakening, because the one thing I love about the Ravens is when they can crank up that running game, they will crank up that running game. They need to pass the ball, Baltimore. Just continue to run. Let Lamar throw less than 25 times a game. Let Lamar run the football himself, and good things usually work out in your favor. The passing props in this game, Josh Allen, 235.5. Lamar Jackson just behind him at 225.5. Passing touchdowns, you're going to get some decent prices here. Josh Allen over 1.5, -114. Lamar Jackson over 1.5, -108. Both of these guys prone to throwing multiple touchdowns in games. It's just what they do. So not only is this a great game, but you're getting decent numbers here in the props market as well. If you're looking at wide receivers, Khalil Shakir, top dog here for the Buffalo Bills, and top dog in the game, 50.5. Mark Andrews, 37.5 for the Ravens. Then we start dipping down into the value categories. Keon Coleman, 22.5. Dalton Kincaid, 30.5. Amari Cooper has been invisible. He's listed at 20.5. Mac Hollins, 15.5. Man, boy, there is some value at the wide receiver position if you can pick out the right spot. Rushing yards in this game. Just told you about a Saquon Barkley prop at 111.5 yards. And by the way, he went bananas the last time they faced the Los Angeles Rams. Derrick Henry in this game, 96.5, below the century mark. James Cook, lead dog for the Buffalo Bills, 55.5. Lamar Jackson, 52.5. Josh Allen, 45.5. And if you believe in that Kenny Gainwell backup slot here, that's Justice Hill at 8.5. Real quick, I know we didn't go over touchdown props for most of the games, but let me just see what we got cooking here, because I assume it's going to be Derrick Henry's -220. Scored a couple times last week. Will he do that same thing? If you look at the Buffalo Bills, +100s on their two top guys, who would they be? Of course, it's Josh Allen on one side, and on the other, it's James Cook. I think if you bet both of those guys, which again, we got a lot more stuff to get through for the rest of the week. I wish I had 3 hours today just to go over these 4 football games to get you thinking in the right direction on how we can make some money with some props, some sides, and some totals for divisional round action this weekend. JP behind the wheels of steel. I'm Donnie Rightside. Tomorrow, we'll be back to talk more football right here.
Saturday night. On Sunday, it'll be the Rams visiting the Eagles. LA with a big win over the Vikings on Monday in Arizona after the game was moved because of the LA wildfires. Head coach Sean McVay.
You know, with everything that's gone on with our community, everything that these guys have gone through, I thought they epitomized and they represented the city the right way.
Later on Sunday, the Bills put their 8-0 home mark on the line against the Ravens. The College Football National Championship game is this coming Monday night in Atlanta with Notre Dame battling Ohio State. Notre Dame's Anthony Knapp is out. He's got an ankle injury. Rocco Spindler is expected to play. Ohio State's Denzel Burke is banged up, but head coach Ryan Day said that he should be available. Bondo Auto and Home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the Sports Grid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Progressive presents Renters MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Emily Neal's 70-inch TV. Because after watching her second-grade students yell at each other for hours, there's nothing Emily enjoys more than watching super rich housewives also yell at each other. Why? Because those women are not her responsibility. And that's why her TV is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
I feel like I'm constantly cleaning hair off my bathroom floor. At least my Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths have ultra-thick pads to trap and lock hairs, like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair's gone, all thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough, sticky messes.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Ben Stevens and George Kurtz.
We get you set for the divisional round today on Football Full Circle. It is FFC all across the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is George Kurtz. I am Ben Stevens. Together for the next hour up until 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Later on in these 60 minutes, we'll take a look at all four of our matchups and what might be the best football weekend each and every season, the divisional round of the NFL postseason. A doubleheader on Saturday, two more games on Sunday, capped off by maybe the best game of the weekend, a marquee matchup expected to be a great one in Buffalo, New York, between the Bills and the Ravens. Plenty to dive into in the divisional round, and of course, all the news and notes you need around the National Football League, including that coaching carousel that goes round and round around the NFL, including George's favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, a head coaching vacancy, and the reaction from the news we learned earlier this week that Mike McCarthy and Dallas have since parted ways.
Yeah, I got surprised, right? Surprised. Like Jerry did want to keep McCarthy, but he wanted to keep him at his terms, mainly not a 5-year contract. He wanted to keep him maybe 2 years. You know, and McCarthy wasn't going for that, which lets you know, by the way, that his agent must have asked around. McCarthy must know there's a good chance he's going to get a job. Maybe it's the Saints, maybe it's the Bears, whatever, and he'll get his 4 or 5 year deal here. Else he would have taken what Jerry was giving out there. Listen, McCarthy's a solid coach, right? He's not bad. I don't think he's great. I don't think his offensive system, Ben, really plays to today's game. I don't think he puts his receivers or his back. I don't think he has enough movement really to succeed in today's game. As a Cowboy fan, though, a lot of Cowboys, this is great. We'll get rid of McCarthy. What changes, Ben? All right, all Jerry's going to do is hire the next puppet. All right, Vrabel was never going to the Cowboys. Ben Johnson, not happening. All right, he'll have other opportunities where he doesn't have to deal with Jerry Jones type here. It's just like he's just going to hire the next puppet. He's going to be involved. He wants to do the press conferences. He wants to make decisions here. I mean, people like Deion Sanders. I don't see that, by the way, because then Jerry would have to secede. Because guess what? The media might want to go see Deion and not see Jerry. Because Deion was going to have just as many great quips as Jerry's going to have. Don't see it. Like I said, it'll be some other puppet here. If you're going to ask me to guess here, my guess would be Kellen Moore, since he's already been there and Jerry did like him. Mike McCarthy moved him out. The greatest line ever, by the way. All Kevin Moore wants to do is score points. Okay. Isn't that his job, Mike? And by the way, a dark horse would be Jason Witten. That wouldn't shock me either.
Yeah, we've heard some names, George, in consideration for that Cowboys job, one of the 6 head coaching vacancies we currently now have in the National Football League. We'll talk about another and where Mike McCarthy might find his next employment in just a little bit. But we start, George, with further reaction to Dallas's decision, including star edge rusher Micah Parsons, who hosts his own podcast known as The Edge, and on the recent episode last night, shared that the move to move on from Mike McCarthy was, quote, devastating. 3 straight seasons, 12-5 seasons, playoff appearances, and obviously an unfortunate year due to injuries. It is devastating. Coach Mike is a great father, great coach, one of the most winningest coaches. He's always been good to us as a unit, coaches, players. Losing a great coach like Mike hurts. End of the quote from Micah Parsons on his podcast titled The Edge. George, it seemed like in the coming days that we had leading up to yesterday, which was when the current contract Mike McCarthy had at the Star ran out, it almost seemed like a deal was going to be reached. And there were some reports that Mike McCarthy did have that buy-in from his team, from his staff, from his roster. What do you make of Micah Parsons' reaction to the change at the head coaching job?
I have no issue with the reaction, right? A lot of players are going to give that kind of reaction, and that's great. And Mike has said something similar a couple of weeks ago when it was talked about, so no issue with that. Overall, I might have an issue with Micah. He talks too much, right? That would be one issue I might say there. That he's got to calm that down. But if you're just taking this as a one-off, no real issue to it. I mean, listen. I said McCarthy is a good coach. I don't think he's great. I think he's in the wrong era. He did try and change some things. You can see that with Dallas going forward on more fourth downs, which of course we see now more than ever. And fake punts, probably too many things. He probably went too far the other way. He's a good, solid coach. Do I think Dallas needed to move on? Sure. Do I think it'll make a difference? No. All right. Like I said, I can't say this enough. Jerry's not going to hire a great coach. He's just not going to do that. And by the way, whoever you hire, you better fix Dak. No matter what you think about whether or not he can play in the playoffs or not, he was terrible last year before he got hurt. Really, Dallas went downhill after he got hurt. Yeah. No, that was pretty bad with him in there. You can make it everything better when he was out. So whoever that coach is going to be, or whoever the offensive coordinator is going to be, or a quarterback coach, or whoever, they better be able to fix Dak. It's another reason why I believe Kellen Moore will once again be that guy, because last time he was there, Dak did lead the NFL in touchdown passes with 37.
Yep, they did have a lot of success together in terms of the offensive scheme for Dallas. George, to highlight a couple of the names that you mentioned that will draw some attention, potentially in a Cowboys coaching search, which, of course, anytime there's a vacancy in Dallas, it is going to get some eyeballs and notoriety. I also do not believe that it will be a prime era in Dallas. I don't think Deion Sanders becomes the next head coach of the Cowboys, much for the reasons that you highlighted. I think two egos that are too big to work in partnership and congruency with one another. I think Jerry Jones, often known as loyal, wants to be in full control of his organization. Kellen Moore, the current offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, who of course was the OC for a while with the Cowboys, makes a lot of sense. Now, as for Mike McCarthy, George, today he is scheduled and currently might be at Hallis Hall in Chicago. There was a lot of speculation about the outlook for Mike McCarthy and what job he could get next. 18 years, George, McCarthy as a head coach around the National Football League, and he has had a lot of success. A Super Bowl champion with the Green Bay Packers back in 2010, a win percentage in his 18 seasons as a head coach of .608, and now interviewing today, George, in person at Hallis Hall. Could he be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears?
I think there's a possibility. Now, they've had a lot of interviews, all right? So I don't think I want to read too much into this, but they did ask for permission, right? They did ask the Cowboys for permission last week. Another way where Jerry Jones really screwed McCarthy over here. If you're really, if you're going to insult him with the contract, you should have let him go. But once again, he gets his interview here, but they've interviewed, a dozen people so far? And these are just names that we know about. So there have been a couple of names we don't know about as well here. So he knows the division, right? I think he would be good for Caleb Williams. So it would make some sense. Do I think he'll get the job? Listen, if I'm going to place odds on it, I would take the field, right? Because they've interviewed so many people, I would have to take the field. And by the way, I would take the field over anybody you name me. If you name me Ben Johnson, I would still take the field. Because I think Ben Johnson, and I don't know if I want to, if I'm Ben Johnson, you're going to have choices, right? Do I really want to compete against Dan Campbell and Goff, Green Bay and what they're doing in Minnesota? Probably not. Unless I think Caleb Williams is going to be the next, god at quarterback here. So I think McCarthy's got a shot. I do. And maybe even a better than average shot, because I think Chicago is more interested in him than maybe they're giving on here by asking for permission from the Cowboys. And then today was the first day he's allowed to interview. Right? His exclusivity ended at midnight last night. Today's day one. He's interviewing with Chicago. So I think they are interested, but I would still take the field over him. But I think there's a shot.
Yeah, George, I agree with you. I do believe there is genuine interest in the Bears, or for the Bears, in Mike McCarthy. A lot has been said by smarter football people than me that the offensive scheme that McCarthy institutes is actually beneficial to the development of a young quarterback, which, of course, is Caleb Williams, the future of the franchise for the Bears in the Windy City. And, George, when you look at this season for Caleb Williams, there was some promise. There was some optimism. For a good majority of it, he played clean football, not turning the football over and making those classic rookie mistakes. But there needs to be more. There's no doubt about it. And overall, for this Chicago organization, it was disappointing. This wasn't a Bears team with a first overall pick and rookie signal caller that was expected to win 5-6 games and maybe make a little bit of noise. Win total was 8.5 in the Windy City, with the over having the juice. We'll talk about that as it pertains to the Bears coaching search on the other side of the break here on Football Full Circle.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin. He just gives that vibe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The IRS has a reminder that the tax deadline for some small businesses affected by severe weather in 2024 is drawing near. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Small businesses in all or parts of 14 states and 2 territories that received extensions to file their 2023 returns due to natural disasters will need to file in 2025. Depending on their location, some have a February 3rd deadline. For others, it's May the 1st. A new study suggests new cases of dementia in the United States are projected to double in the next 3 decades. The study, published this week in the journal Nature Medicine, looked at more than 15,000 people and estimated the lifetime risk of dementia from ages 55 to 95. The team projected new U.S. dementia cases would double from more than 500,000 in 2020 to approximately 1 million by 2060. The authors said this increase is directly tied to the aging of the U.S. population. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
That spice is 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Hi, my name is Khadijah, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick of the chicken. It's just the right amount of heat, and it gets me excited. And then, pro tip, add that cilantro lime sauce. It cools it down. If the sandwich is at 100, the cilantro lime takes it to 200. It makes me want to, tell all my friends and family.
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
There's something you should know and always remember. SportsGrid does not increase luck. We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck, go find a horseshoe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Ben Stevens and George Kurtz.
On Football Full Circle, 6 head coaching vacancies around the NFL, including in the Windy City. Today, Mike McCarthy inside Hallis Hall, interviewing for that Bears head coaching position. George, as you mentioned it, his contract in the exclusivity window expiring late last night. The first day he can really be a free agent and interview with other teams without the Cowboys, of course, needing to grant permission. Mike McCarthy is seizing the opportunity. Some believe that McCarthy would be a good head coach for Caleb Williams entering his sophomore season and in the NFL to bring along the development of Williams, the number 1 overall pick in 2024, who showed spots of promise throughout this year. And I think his performances not nearly as porous as the results overall for Chicago, who snapped a 10-game skid with a rivalry victory over Green Bay in that regular season finale. But George, as we said right before the break, a very disappointing season for the Bears, who had a win total of 8.5 because of the talent on the roster, even outside of the young, promising quarterback in Caleb Williams. Whoever that next head coach is for Chicago, what do you think the outlook should be for the Bears immediately in 2025?
Well, this team is not bereft of talent, right? I mean, Caleb Williams, I think you said it perfectly last segment. He had some good parts, some bad parts. He was a rookie, right? That's really what he was. He was good. He was bad here. They have some talent around him. They need to build that talent up, right? It's not a finished product whatsoever as far as what's going on. That offensive line, Ben, that needs to be fixed. I always think when you have the rookie quarterback, yes, you want to get him the running back, take some of the pressure on, get him 2nd and 4s, right? 2nd and 5s rather than 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9. A top receiver is always great. But you've got to protect him so he's not trying to process information in 0.3 of a second because he's running for his life here. So I think that's important there. It's an area they certainly have to look. I mean, running back as itself, okay. DeAndre Swift, I think, had a solid season. Nothing great. Better as the season went on. Roschon Johnson, it's a solid pair, but it's not going to bring you anywhere. Theoretically, the wide receiver core, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, you worked on that pretty well here. I think that's good there. Cole Kmet, solid tight end. Not spectacular, but a solid tight end. So for me, it's all going to come down to the O-line. I think that's the one, as far as offense is concerned, they have to fix that offensive line. I think you look in the playoffs now, a lot of teams that are left, they protect their quarterback. Or their quarterback can move, right? Yeah. He's not going to be a statue back there. You have to have one or the other here. And I think offensive line is just so damn important, right? The trenches. So that's where I'm worried. I'm working on the Chicago Bears, the offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, George, that is priority number one, either through the draft or free agency this offseason. Much like last year, the Bears have a ton of cap space to attack that open market. We would expect the same. George, you mentioned Mike McCarthy versus Ben Johnson, any head coaching candidate, because the Bears have interviewed a ton. You'd probably take the field versus X individual. I do believe, though, at the end of the day, Chicago, although Mike McCarthy might make some sense, Bears fans and the organization alike would probably prefer to hire Ben Johnson after all of his success as Detroit's offensive coordinator. But if anybody knows how difficult the NFC North is, of course, it is Johnson. 3 teams that won at least double-digit games this year. The Bears, the only team that failed to do just that. I do think it would be a successful hire, but there's issues in Chicago that go beyond any specific head coach, general manager, or quarterback that needs to be ironed out this offseason as well. And, George, it should be noted, right? We've got 6 head coaching vacancies around the NFL as of this moment. 7 in full at some point this offseason. Of course, the Patriots have named Mike Vrabel their new head coach. That happened on Sunday. If you are in the running for perhaps the Lions OC Ben Johnson, or maybe the other coordinator in Detroit, the DC Aaron Glenn, it's going to take a while to name that hire, to introduce said hire, as long as the Lions get to where they expect to, George, and make franchise history by competing in their first ever Super Bowl.
Yeah, and, it's interesting for Ben Johnson, right? Because he's had chances in prior off seasons to be the head coach, but he seems to be waiting, Ben, for that perfect spot, right? And I don't blame him. Yeah. All right, because he knows, or he knew it the last year, listen, I can wait. We're going to be great this year again. I'm going to have plenty of opportunities. And maybe he feels the same way this offseason. You mentioned there's 6 spots left, right? He's not going to Dallas, so that's 5, and maybe he doesn't feel great about any of these spots. I'll wait till next offseason. Because one thing about the NFL, we know next year, there'll be at least 6 to 8 job openings. All right. It's every year we go through this. Every damn year. There's no patience anymore in the NFL. What did Jerry Glanville say back in the day? The NFL stands for not for long. And that's really what it does stand for here. So I wonder if he waits for that opportunity. We're hearing a lot of noise that Tom Brady is putting on the full court press, right? That he wants Ben Johnson to come to the Raiders here. But Ben, if you're Johnson, Raiders, who the hell's your quarterback? All right, you don't have a top pick. You blew that by winning all the games late here. Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones. Is that really who Ben Johnson wants to work with here? So I'm very curious of Ben, because I wonder in some ways if he doesn't take the Chicago job, which might be the best job that's out there, but he doesn't want to compete in the NFC North. I don't want to compete with Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota. If he doesn't take that job, and he doesn't love any of the other jobs, New Orleans, I don't think so. I can't see you're not going to Dallas. I'm already turning down the Rays in Chicago. That leaves what, the Jets? And do you really want to go to that mess? So I wonder if Ben, once again, is going to say, you know what? Not so bad being in Detroit. It's fun. Right? They're having a blast. Lord knows, come on. You can't tell me we're not all waiting for the next trick play. What he's going to pull out Saturday night. So I'm wondering what he's going to do here. So I wonder if he passes by again and waits till next year.
George, it's a really good point. 8 head coaching vacancies last offseason, 7 in total, 6 with a current opening right now this offseason around the National Football League. And one of my best friends, Luke, is a lifelong Bears fan, grew up in the actual city of Chicago. He expresses what many, I think, feel around this Bears fan base, that whether it's a front office exec, a head coach, or a young and promising quarterback, something is always rotten because of ownership, as we have seen around the National Football League. The McCaskey family, not exactly looked at as on the cutting edge. Mark Davis right now in Las Vegas. Go look at the Raiders' record the last 2.5 decades. They've had 2 winning seasons in the last 22 years, in 2 playoff appearances in those same years. There is something about a healthy and promising organization that you want to join as well if you are going to be a head coach and judged by the standard that the NFL is not for long. More coaching news around the rest of the NFL with a focus on the AFC North, coordinators, and a longtime head man in the Steel City. Next.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1967 Super Bowl I, known as the AFL-NFL Championship, between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs in LA's Memorial Coliseum. The game was broadcast on two networks, CBS and NBC, as the 14-point favorite Packers crushed the Chiefs 35-10. Packers quarterback Bart Starr was named the game's MVP.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
University of Bristol scientists have found humans working with robots trust them more when their movements are synchronized. Humans and robots work efficiently and actually build trust when the robots mirrored human movements. However, when that trust is damaged by a robot making a mistake, it's a nonverbal early warning sign that when trust between humans and robots is lost, their work together may not be as successful. Follow me at Chicapalvo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
He's not going to get any better. As he gets older, he's a lot like his brother. He gets injured because he couldn't make a play. He didn't make one tackle in that playoff game. He's at
so you want to trade TJ Watt? So trade everybody, God. Fire everybody. You guys complain in Pittsburgh. We don't win the Super Bowl, but now you want to get rid of everybody.
Yeah, but we won 6 Super Bowls and you have none. So that's the difference.
It's Pharrell Coast to Coast with Scott Farrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge, the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
Anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you.
if you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
You're listening to Football Full Circle with Ben Stevens and George Kurtz.
Some coaching news around the AFC North. George, let's start with a hire by the Cleveland Browns. Really a promotion. Their tight ends coach this past year, former Notre Dame quarterback who was the OC at his alma mater and in Tuscaloosa under Nick Saban. That's the young Tommy Rees, currently 32 years old, turns 33 in May, promoted to be the new offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. An exciting promotion for a young up and coming coordinator and coach, George, in the National Football League.
Well, I wonder two things here. One is Stefanski going to be involved in play calling. We'll see before I give him, before we give full credit here. And two, who the hell's the quarterback? All right. I think Cleveland's one of the most interesting teams, right? Because Deshaun Watson re-ruptures the Achilles, so he's probably done this season. I wonder if he's done with Cleveland. Actually, I wonder if he's done the NFL. If he's ever going to play it down here. So what do? Do they draft a quarterback at 2, sort of screw the Giants over here? And if it's Sanders, who doesn't want to go to Cleveland, right? I mean, Ben, this is going to be great as far as the draft talk is concerned because does Dion and Shador sort of play their way out of Cleveland? Do they want to get to the Giants at 3? Do they force the Giants to trade up now with Cleveland at 2 and give up a draft pick here? Does Cleveland say, screw it, I don't care what you think, I'm going to take you anyway, and they'll call your bluff here? So it's going to be very interesting here, but I don't think it matters who the OC is in Cleveland right now until we find out who their quarterback is. Because like I said, if they don't draft one at 2, I mean, what are we doing then? He's going to trade down and take, we heard this morning Quinn Ewers is coming out and trade lower in the first round. Milrow? I mean, are you going with the veteran retreads? I said Cousins, and I don't think it'll be Winston after what happened last year. So Daniel Jones, that's going to get you nowhere.
And for Jameis Winston, he was really only on a 1-year deal, George, so they would have to re-sign him and bring him back. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the young rookie, not much there either. Bailey Zappi started the regular season finale That is the main question. And, George, we talked about the head coaching vacancies, right? And what might be a desirable destination based on quarterback. Do you have somebody in there as the staple of your franchise? Do you have a young, up-and-coming quarterback who you can build around, like in Chicago with Caleb Williams, or New England, of course, turning things over to Mike Vrabel and Drake May? I'm not entirely sure, George, how this quarterback market looks throughout this offseason. The two top teams in the NFL draft order, one is Tennessee, two is Cleveland. As of this moment, George, I would say there's really only two quarterbacks in consideration of a first-round selection. Certainly in the top 5, top 10. And both the Titans and the Browns do desperately need a quarterback. If they end up being the teams in those spots to make those selections is a different story. But Cam Ward is the odds-on favorite to go first overall to Tennessee, minus 125. Shedeur Sanders not all that far behind, second best price at plus 105. George, assuming the Titans and the Browns stay put in draft quarterbacks, or at least assuming that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders go off the board 1 and 2 in some form or fashion, that leaves a lot of teams behind that are going to have to answer a quarterback question, probably through free agency or trying to scrap something together. The Giants draft third. Will they have the opportunity to even get their quarterback of the future? Will it be worth it? Basically with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane being both sitting in lame ducks at this moment entering 2025. You mentioned the Raiders, who won 2 of their last 3 games to fall out of even the top 5 at 6th overall. How about the Saints with the head coaching vacancies? It's Spencer Rattler. I don't think he's proved that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Certainly not Jake Haener. Is Derek Carr coming back and worth it from an investment standpoint? George, there's probably 5-6 teams, I would say right now around the NFL, that have to answer a quarterback question that will more than likely not have the opportunity to do so early in the NFL draft.
See, I think the Giants are the one interesting team here, right? Because they're keeping their GM. You already said it. Daboll and Shen are staying there. What else means, you said, they are lame ducks because if they go through another losing season, they're gone. What that means to me, Ben, is that Shen's not going to care about draft picks because guess what? If we don't win this year, I ain't coming back next year. I don't care if we don't have a first-round pick next year, second round, whatever it might be here. He has to get a quarterback this year. But that also means, let's just say for giggles, they end up with Sanders. Can he win from day one? What if they still go 4-13 next year with Sanders? Do I get another year? It's a really rough situation. You can make an argument the Giants are better with a veteran quarterback. Try and win now and figure it out later.
And there's going to be a couple on the market. Sam Darnold, maybe a Kirk Cousins acquisition some way or another. A couple of things to figure out around the NFL. We'll talk Mike Tomlin, what he had to say after the end of the Steelers season. Next.
The winning edge. You've got it. But not everybody has it because not everybody listens to us. But we're working on that. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Bill Belichick's been the head coach for the North Carolina Tar Heels football team for just about a month, but there's already worry that he could bolt to the NFL. Belichick has yet to fill out his staff. That's reportedly making lots of people nervous, including ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. There are several NFL head coaching vacancies, the latest in Dallas after Mike McCarthy wasn't retained. Clemson football reportedly interested in adding Penn State's Tom Allen as their next defensive coordinator. He's the top candidate to replace third-year defensive coordinator Wes Goodwin, who was let go after the Tigers ranked 85th in rushing defense. Allen's a former head coach at Indiana. At Penn State this past season, he commanded a top 10 total and scoring defense for the season. The Nittany Lions were 7th in total defense and 8th in scoring defense. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
You're listening to Football Full Circle with Ben Stevens and George Kurtz.
Live right here on FFC, it is Football Full Circle. George, there are certain things around the NFL that we all know to be true. In Pittsburgh, it's never a losing season under Mike Tomlin. All 18 years as the head coach of this Pittsburgh franchise, never a losing record, never fewer than 8 wins. For the last 5 years, a playoff berth with a rotating cast and crew at the quarterback spot as well. Either the final years of Ben Roethlisberger's tenure, when he could barely move in the pocket, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, now Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields, the Steelers still win football games, find their way to double-digit victories, and earn a playoff bid. But the ceiling outside of that, there's not much. The Steelers have not won a playoff game since 2016. They have made 5 playoff appearances in the last 5 years without a single postseason win. After the end of this 2024 campaign for the Steelers, Mike Tomlin was at the podium yesterday, kind of a postpartum, right, on the season that was for Pittsburgh. Asked a variety of things about the offense moving forward, the quarterback spot this offseason for the Steelers, and also, George, about his own status as the Steelers head coach. If teams would inquire about trading for Mike Tomlin, contract runs through 2027 for Tomlin. He has a no trade clause in that contract. Yes, I'm talking about head coaches, but we have seen coaches traded for in previous years. Bruce Arians from Arizona to Tampa Bay. Technically, Sean Payton had to be involved in a deal from New Orleans to Denver. And when Tomlin was asked about that and what his message might be to any potential suitors, he said in Tomlin words, quote, "I have no message. Save your time." George, what do you think ultimately the Steelers' offseason will look like under Mike Tomlin and what it means for this franchise moving forward?
Well, I don't think their quarterback of the future is on the roster. All right, they're moving on from Russ. This is hard, but I think they should have given Justin Fields more play. I understand maybe you don't make the playoffs if you do that. I get that, but you should have found out if he could be your future quarterback. Instead you wanted to win now, which is what the NFL is. We want to win now. We don't want to wait. And Russ got you to the playoffs. Congratulations, but that's as far as he can get you. And I don't even know if he can get you to the playoffs. When I think of the Steelers, I think Tomlin is a Hall of Fame coach, great coach, and I am certainly not moving on from him. All right, I think that's crazy. I'm a Cowboy fan. You want to give me Tomlin? Gladly take him. Okay, gladly. All right, it's a real head coach. I can listen to Tomlin talk all day long. That being said, I think he is a guy who has a very high floor and a kind of a low ceiling. But I don't think that's his fault, by the way. I think we should be looking at the GM. I mean, Ben, you look at the Steelers. How many players you want on your team from Pittsburgh? Okay, TJ Watt, who should be a Cowboy anyway. Cowboys took Taco Charlton over him. Thank you, Jerry. Minka Fitzpatrick, sure. Okay. George Pickens, complete head case, but okay. There's talent there. There's a lineman or two. Outside of that, that's it. There's not much talent there. I think Tomlin has gotten as much out of this team as you can possibly imagine. Every year, I don't think they're a playoff team. Sorry, Scotty Farrell. Sorry, Mike Blewett. But he gets more out of them than really anybody can, which is a sign of a great head coach. But if you're asking to go any further, no, he's not going to go any further. That's as good as he can do. And in some ways, Ben, they're in middling hell. I'm a firm believer in, I don't care if it's NBA, NHL, MLB, NFL. You either need to be competing for a trophy or you need to suck. You can't be in the middle. And the Steelers are in the high middle, right? They make the playoffs sort of like the Cowboys do, and that's all they can go. They're going to get that 14, 15, 18 pick, which gets you nowhere. You need top picks or you need to compete for a trophy. So they're sort of in middling hell here. And I don't think that changes. I don't think no matter what they do this offseason, I don't think that changes.
Yeah, I know it might sound silly, but to echo George's point, the Steelers are almost plagued by their own success because they continue to win in the regular season and earn a playoff spot. They never have a disastrous year. They never fail on expectation. They never finish 4-13 or 5-12, where you can say, all right, we got to build this thing back up again from the ground up. We dismiss our head coach. We have a top 5, top 10 pick to try to figure out that quarterback question the Steelers have had since the end of the Big Ben era. They are not presented the opportunity to address the future of their franchise. And George, there are so many NFL fan bases, organizations, front offices, owners, whatever it might be, 20 to 25 probably, that if you told them, hey, we'll give you 18 consecutive years of never having a losing record, they say, sign me up right now. I don't care. I'll sign the dotted line. If you say, I'll give you 3 years in a row of a winning season each and every year, they probably sign the dotted line. The Steelers are one of the historic franchises in the history of the National Football League. The Steelers have had 3 head coaches since the year 1969. The Hall of Famer Chuck Noll, the Hall of Famer Bill Cowher, and the soon-to-be, whenever he hangs it up, Hall of Famer Mike Tomlin. But they are judged, George, by Super Bowl trophies, by those Lombardis, not playoff bids, not 10-win seasons. And Mike Tomlin, in his second year, taking over for Bill Cowher, won a Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin, in his 4th year, back in 2010, reached the Super Bowl. That was the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers played in the big game. George, the last time the Steelers even played in an AFC title game was back in 2016. The last season, the Steelers even won a playoff game. They are far from that ceiling that the Pittsburgh fan base believes they need to be at. And you are right. High middling is almost dooming their outlook year in, year out.
And it's not likely to get any, no matter what they do this offseason, it's not likely to get any better. I mean, you're in a division with Lamar Jackson, who, whether or not he wins the MVP, and I think he should win the MVP, is great as a great quarterback. Joe Burrow, who would have won the MVP if they would have made the playoffs. He had any kind of defense, right? I mean, these guys aren't going anywhere. Yeah, you got Cleveland. All right, congratulations. But it's one of the best divisions in the National Football League. You want to argue the NFC North, fine. But it's going to be a tough road. No matter who they bring in at quarterback, I don't see a rookie getting in there. So once again, we're talking the retreads. And good luck. Good luck competing with Lamar Jackson. Good luck competing with Joe Burrow and stuff like that. And your defense is not, the steel curtain anymore. It's good, but it's not the steel curtain. Your running game, it's okay, and I don't know what's going to happen with Pickens there. But, who should be, I said there's too many questions here. Too many questions to fix in one off season. And as you said, in some ways you're better off tearing it down, rebuilding it back up. You need to suck for a couple of years, but Steelers aren't going to accept that. They're not going to accept that. So that's why if I was to bet on their win total next year, it's what Tomlin does every year. He'll get 9 wins out of you. He gets 9. It's what he does. It's why he's a great coach, because that talent does not scream 9 wins to me.
And George, to your point, again, that is what Mike Tomlin does. And some arguments have said, well, who are you going to find better than Mike Tomlin, right? If Mike Tomlin were to leave today from Pittsburgh, there would be every one of the 6 head coaching vacancies and maybe a few that already have a head coach that would sign up to try to interview Mike Tomlin. And he would probably go to that next NFL organization and have some resounding success. But even, George, when you have had a long partnership, it just needs to come to a time that through different eras in a league, you need to make a change. Things get stale. And after nearly 2 decades together, could that be the case? After 24 years and 6 Super Bowls in New England, the Patriots and Bill Belichick agreed to part ways. After 20 years and 6 Super Bowls as the quarterback, Tom Brady recognized it was time for something new. That is what we are trending toward with the Steelers. We'll see when they get there. And George, Pittsburgh, again, one of those teams that will not draft in the top 5, maybe not even in the top 2, that has to address the quarterback spot. Nobody's under contract. Justin Fields isn't under contract. Russell Wilson signed a 1-year minimum veteran deal on the cheap. So the Steelers are another one of those teams that is going to be looking to answer a quarterback question. You could say the Steelers, the Saints, I guess the Vikings are turning things over to J.J. McCarthy, depending on where the Giants are able to end up selecting. If it's a 3, the Giants, the Raiders, the Colts, I mean, the list goes on. The Steelers included in there as well. The Jets, there's a group of teams that more than likely will not have the best chance to address it in the NFL draft early and often, and will have to turn elsewhere in the off season. Now we'll get you set for the divisional round. Up next on FFC.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The IRS has a reminder that the tax deadline for some small businesses affected by severe weather in 2024 is drawing near. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Small businesses in all or parts of 14 states and 2 territories that received extensions to file their 2023 returns due to natural disasters will need to file in 2025. Depending on their location, some have a February 3rd deadline. For others, it's May the 1st. A new study suggests new cases of dementia in the United States are projected to double in the next 3 decades. The study, published this week in the journal Nature Medicine, looked at more than 15,000 people and estimated the lifetime risk of dementia from ages 55 to 95. The team projected new U.S. dementia cases would double from more than 500,000 in 2020 to approximately 1 million by 2060. The authors said this increase is directly tied to the aging of the U.S. population. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money, because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. It's just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Ben Stevens and George Kurtz.
Now we are just a few days away from the divisional round of the NFL postseason. A second weekend, George, that by many is regarded as the best weekend of football each and every year. Sure, it's not jam-packed and full slates all day long on Sunday, but with a doubleheader on Saturday, 2 more games on Sunday to decide the 2 spots to contend for a conference championship, of course, then just 1 win away from a Super Bowl berth. You get the best of the best against each other in the most significant games of a season. It is why we love the divisional round. And for those teams, George, playing on Saturday, full week of practice started yesterday. For those playing on Sunday, full week of practice, really back on the turf, starts today. Let's go to one of those teams playing on Saturday, one of the 2 teams that earned the 1 seed in either conference, and of course, had the open weekend and a bye to rest up and get healthy, which has been critical for Detroit as of late. It wasn't a full practice yesterday for the Lions, despite hosting the Commanders on Saturday night. But even in a walkthrough, it's good for Detroit to see David Montgomery back on the field. He is trending toward a reappearance on Saturday night against the Commanders. Jahmyr Gibbs has been sensational in the 3-game absence of Montgomery. But to get the man known as Sonic to Knuckles back as one of the most dynamic duos in the NFL in the backfield for a critical division round game, of course, George, that is only a positive for the Lions.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a runaway train offense. We know that there. And Gibbs has been fantastic. You could make an argument, Ben, that having Montgomery return and then Gibbs losing, 5 to 8 touches is a bad thing, right? Just keep giving the ball to Gibbs. He's been that dynamic there. Listen, Washington, I think Washington's a great story. Okay, as a Cowboy fan, I am not happy they found their franchise quarterback. They're going to be a problem now, and they'll build around Jay Daniels in years to come. Because once again, you look at this Washington roster, 1-53. Really, this is a playoff team. That sort of thing. This is Jaden Daniels. I mean, this is really Jaden Daniels. The running game has been non-existent over the past month. Brian Robinson has fallen off a cliff. All right, he's doing absolutely nothing there. Not all his fault. The offensive line is not all that great either. McLaurin's been great. Zach Ertz. I mean, what are we in? It's just like 10 years ago. Zach Ertz been reborn. So they'll score some points with the passing game here. But this is Detroit wins this game. All right, this is a nice W for Detroit. The only way they don't win this game is if they come out slow. They have had 13 days off. And they get to a slow start, and Washington scores a quick early 10 to 13 points. Even then, I'm not so sure they can hold off Detroit because Detroit's coming. And I know the over is 55.5, which is just nuts. The problem is Dan Campbell's not stopping. All right, he's not going to take the foot off the brakes at all here. They're up 34-3. He'll make it 41, 48. It won't matter here. So as much as I don't want to play the over, I don't see how I can play the under against the Dan Campbell team. Detroit wins the. Like I said, Washington, great season, and so many times we see a team like Washington, sort of a Cinderella team. They win their first playoff game. That second round game's a bust. Yeah. It's like the air's out of the blue. It's just a bust here. I think Detroit wins this. I'm kind of starting to feel it's going to be kind of an easy win.
Yeah, 9.5 now, that number in favor of the Lions. Detroit, the largest favorite of any team throughout the divisional round and this second round of the postseason. George, it is interesting when you look at these big numbers for a divisional round matchup. You can feel comfortable in the Lions winning comfortably, but to lay nearly double digits is a different animal. Detroit has been the best cover team under Dan Campbell, the only team covering in more than 62% of their games. Their cover percentage hit is 68.7%. 11-5 against the spread as the favored side this year. 55 and a hook is a big total. George, neither of these two teams are going to be looking to punt. We have two head coaches that are very aggressive on fourth down, that convert successfully a lot on fourth down. Washington, an NFL record, 82.4%. Again, we saw that on Sunday night. The Commanders 3 of 5 on fourth down, did not punt, did not turn the football over against Tampa. Good news to have David Montgomery back, but just to echo what George was saying, in the 3 games without Montgomery in the backfield, when it was solely Jahmyr Gibbs, at least 154 scrimmage yards in every game, scored in every game, capped off, of course, by the legendary performance in that regular season finale against the Vikings. 4 total touchdowns, nearly $140 on the ground, 31 receiving yards as well. Detroit in a comfortable position. George, elsewhere as we get ready for the divisional round this weekend, the Chiefs getting healthier on the defensive side as well. We expect to see Jalen Watson, one of the young corners in that secondary for Steve Spagnuolo, opposite a second-team All-Pro player in Trent McDuffie, where they really haven't been together in that secondary all season long. The Chiefs, now an 8.5-point favorite against the Houston Texans for that first game on Saturday of divisional weekend. 41.5 is the total. George, much like the conversation for Detroit and Washington, the Texans winning outright as an underdog at home during Wild Card weekend. Do you expect the Texans to put up a fight and keep this game within the number against Kansas City in Arrowhead?
First off, you have to love it, right? It just doesn't matter. Houston, you're playing the Super Bowl champions, Patrick Mahomes. You're still playing 4:30 on Saturday, all right? You gotta love the NFL. This team just gets no love, no Sunday game, no primetime game, even if it's Kansas City. I think it's gonna be a decent game. I don't expect Kansas City to be able to run away with the game. Did check the weather. Remember the last time we saw a playoff game in Kansas City in January? It was like, people losing digits off their toes against Miami last year. 37. 37 degrees. Nice. As far as Kansas City is concerned, in January, nice day.
Beautiful.
So that's not going to be a problem for either team here. Ben, I do worry about Kansas City getting off to a slow start. They haven't played since Christmas. All right, it'll be 24 days. It's 3.5 weeks. So I do worry about that here. I think Kansas City wins the game. I think they're going to win the game like they do most of this season. It's going to be close. Might come down to a last-minute field goal, which is my way of telling you, yeah, Kansas City wins, but Houston covers.
Yeah, George, I think it's hard to fault that explanation. The Chiefs this year, a touchdown favorite or greater 5 times, 5-0 straight up. 0-5 against the spread. If you eliminate that regular season finale for KC when they played the reserves against the Denver Broncos and lost by 38 points, they won 15 of their first 16 games. But, George, the average margin in the first 16 weeks for Kansas City, 6.1 points per game. 8th best in the NFL. They have not blown out teams this year. We'll see on Saturday. The rest of the divisional round up next on Football Full Circle.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Ben Stevens and George Kurtz.
The practice weeks for our 4 divisional round matchups this weekend in the NFL postseason now really underway. Wednesday for teams that will play on Sunday when that full week of practice really gets started. And as we look at it, George, for Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia, it's the Eagles and the Rams. We did get word about Tyler Higbee, that he is expected to play for LA on Sunday in Philly, despite getting injured in the opening half of their first playoff game this past week, of course, in Glendale, Arizona, against the Vikings. And Tyler Higbee, a guy that was injured last year in the postseason, missed the first 15 weeks of this NFL season, played the final 3 for LA, was playing in his 4th game against the Vikes, and had a great opening half, really a quarter and a half, with 5 grabs for 58 yards, suffered a chest contusion. Head coach Sean McVay said he spent some additional time in the hospital because he was spitting up blood, and yet still expects to be out there on Sunday for a divisional round matchup against the Eagles.
He was almost like a secret weapon there, right? How well he was playing here. So as you said, chest contusion, spitting up blood. He should be okay and plays on Sunday there. You know, the Eagle passing game did not look good last week. They won the game fine, but it did not look all that great. The defense really took care of that game for them. You're looking at the weather on the Northeast here. We know it's going to be chance of snow. I'm seeing it on my thing now, a couple of inches this Sunday into Monday. Looking at the Philadelphia, same thing, 40 degrees, chance of snow, 8-mile-an-hour winds. You know, that's not terrible, by the way, for Philadelphia this time of year. It's not. You know, but the last time I saw Stafford play in bad weather would be that Thursday night game against San Fran where it was raining, and he was awful. I think this is a low-scoring game, Ben. I don't think this is high-scoring at all. I kind of like the under in this game. Listen, I picked Philadelphia to go to the Super Bowl before the playoffs started, so I'm not going to go away from that yet. I think they'll beat the Rams in a close game, but this is not a game I'm going to like as far as props or anything like that. I think this could be kind of an ugly game between Barkley's going to have to carry it, Kyren Williams going to have to carry it, and by the way, Kyren Williams, he did those splits in that game against Minnesota, right, where he got a little banged up here. I'd like to know really how he feels here, how well he's practicing before I make any moves on the Rams here. I'm going with the Eagles here, but it's sort of like a crying coal here. I don't feel great about it.
These two teams played back in late November out in Los Angeles in a Sunday night football game in which the Eagles absolutely blitzed LA 37-20. Saquon Barkley, a career day, 255 yards on the ground, 2 rushing scores. Each touchdown, by the way, was at least 70 yards for Saquon Barkley, a historic day for him. His rushing yards prop against LA for this upcoming Sunday afternoon, 111 and a hook. George, the total on the rise from yesterday, which is surprising, both because of the weather conditions that we expect, the offenses that we saw, but mainly the brilliant defensive displays from both the Birds and the Rams in the opening round. Philly allowed the Packers to score just 10 points. The Rams only allowed 9 against Minnesota. Of course, our final game of the divisional round, George, is the game that everybody is looking forward to, the game of the weekend. 8.5 spread in favor of the Ravens. Minus 118 on the money line for the Flock, but less than 20 cents of difference to the other side for the Bills at home. Even money plus 100. And a total of 51.5. George, if the odds makers are correct, and this game tracks based on the numbers, we are expecting an incredibly close and competitive game that is also rather high scoring for the postseason. Do you think it will match that sort of billing?
No, I don't think we're going to get a lot of points in this game either here. 13 degrees, and it's going to get colder. All right, that is brutal. That is really cold, boys and girls. All right, this is not 28 degrees here. All the numbers for Lamar Jackson are terrible in cold weather, by the way. Granted, we're talking not, it's a little different here. Josh Allen's numbers are generally good here. And by the way, there'll also be a ton of pressure on Lamar Jackson. He loses this game. Dak Prescott's name's going to come. He can't win big games either. Justin Herbert, a lot of pressure on him. Josh Allen, he gets that noise as well, though I don't think he deserves that. I liked Baltimore a lot until I start seeing the weather here. Now I'm starting to edge towards Buffalo, but I don't think we're going to get the points they're hoping for. But this should be a great game.
Yeah, we hope it is competitive. There are so many storylines, George, outside of the actual football game and those key matchups, the X's and O's that we expect to be sensational. There's the individual storylines this year. Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen for the NFL MVP award. A couple of fan bases that you normally think wouldn't have much to say about the other that have kind of campaigned for their own guy to win the award. So a little bit of hate there. And, of course, some bigger picture storylines for playoff records and beyond. He's George Kurtz. I am Ben Stevens. That does it for us today on Football Full Circle here on SportsGrid Radio. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.